On the escalator again.
Leave it alone.
What?
Comics.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
TV and movies. Wrestling. Music.
We are just getting started!
Finally, a podcast about things you actually care about, hosted by a couple of guys who actually care about those things too.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yep. Maybe a little too much.
Yes, that's awesome.
The talented one, Chris Machete.
That no-talent ass clown became famous.
And Brenton, you know, that guy from your other favorite podcast.
I liked it. I was good at it.
So grab onto the handrail and don't let go.
There's a little boy caught the escalator!
This is the Kids on the Escalator podcast. Woo! Here's CM and BD.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Hello.
Before we start, I got to run this.
Okay.
Canucks have won 3 in a row.
Yeah, it's good. Huh? Good for the
Hey! Oh!
Canucks.
Three big wins in a row.
Leafs are winning right now, 4-1 against Detroit, and Marner looks like a machine. Holy cow, Marner looks good. Actually, Murray looks good in net, too. They're doing pretty well, especially with the lack of defense the Leafs have right now. Missing, like 4 players? They're doing well.
I re-picked up Ilya Samsonov in my pool because he's coming off the IR in like a day or two. So picked him back up. Holy big show, man! Big show. We got a big announcement. We got a big announcement that we're going to get to at the end of the show about the future of this show and what's happening with us in 2023. But without further ado, it is time to talk some heavy metal. Because we're having a blast with these underrated, overrated series. So welcome you back to the show. Darren Pfeiffer, how are you, sir?
Hi, Darren.
Just my camera here.
There you go, buddy.
There we go. Put the hockey puck in front of it and hold it.
I can't. Your drum head back there looks like the cover of Skid Row's Subhuman Race record, by the way.
This is actually made for me by Remo. It says Steve Soto, the bass player of the Adolescents who died a couple years back.
Look at that.
Who I played in a band with for many years. Punk rock karaoke. He was a bass player. And he is like an innovator, one of the old school OG California punk rocker guys that, helped start the genre, really, with his band, The Adolescents.
Cool.
From one drummer to the next. We got Chris Bonus from Random Killing and 800 other bands. What's happening, buddy? What's going on? Welcome to the show. There we are. Now, you've got a set of V drums in your room. Do you also have real drums in there, Darren? Yeah, you got the V drums. You got real drums in there, too?
I did originally when we moved into this house, but then it took up too much space. And my wife's makeup area she's like, I got to move like your snare drum to put on my makeup. So I moved him into my buddy's studio right down the street so I can go play him whenever I want.
Boneless, you got a kit down there, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's in the basement, but yeah, there's a few of them here.
I'd also like to point out for the record, this is the first time that Chris Machete's ever been on a panel with 3 drummers. Two really with one half drummer.
So that's like the new TV show, 2.5 drummers.
2.5 drummers, that's right.
Good. Well, you can answer some of this. It's cool because some of the metal that I'm going to be talking about, it's the time changes that just were new, and I don't know how to describe the time changes. But as soon as I mention them, you guys will be like, "That is 4 by 2 and 7." They're gonna math, right? But some of the important parts that I'm going to bring up about the metal that I loved that is underrated is the time changes and stuff. Man, the drummers do some. There's some phenomenal metal drummers out there. Let's just say that, right?
Oh, there really is. I mean, there's some guys out there right now that, I'm sure Boneless can attest to this, that are doing stuff that's just like unhuman.
Yeah.
Like the guy that's in Meshuggah, like I still can't figure out what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. What about like a band like Converge?
Converge's drummer. The new drummer for Lamb of God is killer too. He's really stepped in and man, he's deadly. Deadly.
Awesome.
We'll get to that in a minute because I toured with Megadeth and Lamb of God a couple summers ago. And Darren's got a thing about one of those bands. But Lamb of God had just freshly come out with brand new drummer, and it was a whole thing. And Chris was out of the band at that point, and yeah, it was a new energy, and there's like a whole going on there with that band. So very cool. And I was like on Lamb of God, kind of taking over the Pantera fans a bit.
They definitely
So
have a
they got the
Pantera
riffs and
vibe.
stuff,
Whenever I taught a lot of that back in when they were really popular, and it was a lot of the whole vibe. But the one guy he holds his pick. I remember really weird. He held it like between his ring finger and his thumb or something like that. I just found it really odd the way he held his pick. The one guy, but man, he was really good at it. Some of these kids come in like, I want to play exactly like that dude. It's like, whoa, okay. Well, first of all, hold your pick like this. Okay, never mind. I'll just learn the song. Okay, cool.
Well, Garth Richardson, the producer, said, "You wanted to sound like Rage Against the Machine? Join Rage Against the Machine."
Well, you would know.
That's right. All right, guys. So we're gonna we got Darren for a little bit today. We're gonna get into most underrated and overrated metal bands of all time. Our opinions, of course, and we're gonna run the gamut of a bunch of different things. Actually, Boneless has a couple on his list that we covered in the punk rock one that also cross over to metal. So, kind of rad. So as we go along here, Darren, why don't you get the ball rolling here and give us kind of like number 5 or in no particular order. Yeah.
Really quick before we get rolling, I found it interesting how when you look on Bonus, when you go to your band's Wikipedia page, it says right off the bat, this band started as a joke. Did you know that?
It did. Yeah,
but then it goes on to say this band started as a joke, but then they wrote a couple decent songs, so they had to record them. That's what it says.
Absolutely,
so
and it's completely true. They just didn't think that they were going to do anything, and started getting popular, and just kind of the ball just kept rolling, and we're pretty close to 40 years. I think 2024 we're at 40 years of playing. So
wow.
It's been a long time.
Very cool. Congrats.
And that was before, and that was Raw Energy too. Wasn't Raw Energy a big part of Random Killing back then?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they were on Raw Energy, and they were also put out some records through A&M Records when that existed way back in the day.
A&M, wow.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm sure one of those bands that's on Darren's Canadian underrated bands list is on A&M. I'm sure 2 of them are on A&M at least. I'm sure of it. So
Right
I'm
on,
sure.
let's
So,
hear 'em.
anyways, go ahead, Darren. Get the ball rolling, sir.
Get the ball rolling here. I'll start with a handful of I'll start with one underrated metal band. People have heard of the band. They're really not quite sure what they're about. Who's in the band? It's SOD, Stormtroopers of Death.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Who put out one of the quintessential metal, joke metal, really. A lot of the songs are kind of jokey and short and stupid, but there's a few handfuls on it that are just will stand the test of time. The record's called Speak English or Die. Again, this is 1985. It was before the woke movement, before PC was really a thing. I'm not quite sure you can put a record out like that now without getting a lot of grief. But yeah, you had Dan Liker and Charlie and Scott, who were from Anthrax, and Billy Milano, who went on to form another band called MOD.
Yeah.
But that record, Speak English or Die, it fits into that mold of records you can put on and forget about. Just play the whole thing all the way through and then put it on repeat because it's pretty short. Just one hit after another, one joke after another. It's just so good. And not many people, when I talk about metal, I bring up SOD and they're like, "Who's SOD?"
Wow.
And I just go, "Oh,
That's baseball.
you claim to know metal?" They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big metalhead." They're like, "No, you're not."
Could they be compared? There is often a comparison between them and Dayglow as far as the Canadian version and like the fun, punky kind of metal thing. Do you agree or disagree on that? I've seen the comparison on the
I
two
would
of them.
disagree because, I mean, if you listen to Speak English or Die by SOD, there's a lot of songs on there that are under 10 seconds.
Sure.
There's a few songs that are really short and clearly that's a joke. Whereas like Dayglow songs were silly, but they were still well structured.
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
And not 5 seconds long.
Yeah, we were
If I'm
talking
not
about that last time
mistaken,
about Dayglow and how good their stuff was. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it wasn't Speak English or Die like the birth of the blast beat too, like the sacred blast beat that everybody like covets now.
Yes,
Could be.
It's funny. You would know that as a drummer, but there's a song on that record that one of the standout songs called "Milk,"
Yeah.
And Charlie does a blast beat in it. Da, 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 da. Like he kind of invented it, I suppose. I mean, that's 1984 when he recorded it, 85 when it was released. So, yeah, that's way before the stuff that's going on now.
Through my circle of friends, it's kind of been the thing. Like, yeah, that was the very first blast beat that ever existed. So,
I believe it is. Yeah.
And all it got him was carpal tunnel. All I got him was carpal tunnel and a replacement gig in Pantera. It looks like.
Been in this drum beat, and all I got was carpal tunnel.
That's right. Bonus, what do you got, buddy? First name.
Let's see what do I got here. I got a lot of Canadian metal bands on here, but I'll get to those after. But Entombed is my first underrated. I know a lot of gearheads kind of covet Entombed because of that sound that they created on some of their earlier records, that guitar tone that just sounded like it was on the brink of explosion kind of thing. Yeah, like Wolverine Blues, Clandestine, even like To Ride, Shoot Straight, Speak the Truth, and Morning Star, like all great records that have fantastic songs front to back. It's kind of the same thing as what Darren was saying about SOD. But yeah, I think Entombed should have got a little more limelight than they did. But
nice. Yeah, that's one band I'm not too familiar with. That's cool. So I'm gonna have to spin them a bit tomorrow and check that out while I'm doing some work for sure.
Check them out. They're like considered like death metal, but they also have like kind of bluesy, kind of stoner rocky riffs on some of the records.
I'm obviously aware of the Wolverine Blues song, right? Because that was in the comic books way back. It was like, oh, these guys got a tune-up called the Wolverine Blues. Okay, it was about Wolverine, the comic book characters.
But yeah, I know what I mean, they're a band that's I was always in a really small club, and every single time I was watching them, I was just like, why the hell are these guys not playing to like thousands of people? You know, like
you can see
that's
that.
cool. That's cool when you can see those
great players. Like singer actually passed away. I think it was late last year. He
oh, that's too bad.
Away. Yeah. So no, I don't think they're carrying on now, but yeah.
Chris, first one off your list there, bud. We'll go back.
Okay. Oh man. So I would say like I loved the thrash scene when it came in. What's the Bay Area thrash scene, I guess it was. I loved Testament when they first came out with the New World Order. And we were also starting to get some guitar players that were trained by other professional guitar players. So you're getting some guys coming in that were structuring some metal songs. And as a young guitar player, it was just like, wow. And then you put, as I was mentioned, there's these drum time changes they would do, right? Where they'd go from the ticka, 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 and then I used to call it just dropping the beat because I'm a guitar player. That's my drum talk. But they would go from like the straight ahead kind of a rock beat to the ticka, 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 and then bring it to the boom.
They pronged it up, is what you're saying.
Pardon me?
They pronged it up.
Pronged it up.
Yeah, I guess so, right? And so you get that like that, like the Megadeth kind of. I'm going right to a Wake Up Dead. That kind of sound. I just loved it. So Testament really hit me that way, and I love Chuck Billy's voice. He was really deep and guttural with that. But the first album that I heard from them was New World Order. It was just, I can remember listening to it outside when we were partying in the summertime and just trying not to get a pit going. You know, oh, everyone's going to kill us, man. What are you guys doing? Stop slamming around. But it was so hard to listen to it and not get into it, you know, being a teenager and whatnot. And then the other one was Death Angel along the same time. Early Death Angel was amazing. And they were just kids when the Ultraviolence came out. And they're still going and have great albums. We had a member of the band on here.
Actually, yeah, we had Ted on a couple months ago.
Ted, that was funny too. I just a sidebar. We get Ted on from Death Angel. I'm a huge Death Angel fan, obviously, and we talk a lot about comic books. And our whole show was comic books and movies at that time. When we get him on, and I'm like, hey, wow, so good to meet you. So, what's your favorite comic book? Well, I don't read comics. Well, what kind of movies do you like? I don't like movies either, man. I just like the business side of music. And I'm like, Okay, I'm out of here. My name's Chris. It's been great. I had no idea what it was so funny, but Brent knows the business side, right? But I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. So
Darren, as a broadcaster, Darren, how would you recommend Chris would have proceeded in that situation when the guest is giving you nothing?
Oh, I've had a few interviews like that. You try to think of questions that don't require yes or no right away. Like I interviewed HR for the Bad Brains, and he was giving me, and he was going through some health issues. So he's not like antisocial or unpersonable, or he just had some health issues, and he was like answering with yes and no. And so I'd like think on the fly of like, tell me about the recording process of Eye Against Eye. Okay, you can't say yes or no to that. Okay.
Sure.
Like over the years, give me like 2 or 3 examples of times when you really thought you made it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say yes or no to that. So you got to think on the fly.
Right. I think Brent asked him that one, Darren. I think that's what happened. Is Brent was asking him all those questions that were smart, and I'm like, okay, go ahead, Chris. And I'm like,
because he's like, I want to come on the show. I met him at a show backstage on, I think, Korn or something years ago, and he's like, I want to come on the show. I'm like, sure, we do comic books and movies. He's like, it'll be great. I'm like, okay.
It was just funny because I was so stoked, and I had friends like hit me up, oh man, remember Death Angel on, or remember we used to party those guys, we saw them play, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really excited, it's gonna be great. And I had a bunch of my old Metal Bros. It was just funny, like great guy, but he was math and I was art or phys ed or whatever, the opposite. We were at 2 different ends of the school, but listening to the same music, which was cool.
Happens when you have a show. Darren, what do you got on your list there, bud?
Yeah, running out of time, but I can say for as long as I possibly can. But this next band, definitely have metal in them. You can hear it; it's crystal clear. Mm-hmm. It's more metal industrial with like shades of hardcore. But I think they're a metal band, and as far as that genre that's in their music, I think they're underrated. And that would be a band out of New York City called Helmet.
Oh, Helmet, yeah, their riffs, huh? Oh,
like those riffs and the drumming. Oh my God, the drumming is it's simple, not complicated, but just completely on fucking point. Mm-hmm. Like plays the perfect thing at the perfect time. And then Page Hamilton's like really weird because he's like a jazz musician, and he comes up with these riffs that are like really tricky, but they sound simple, but they're really industrial. They got an industrial sound. There's some hardcore in there because they're from the New York, that scene, but they're a metal band, I think, and not many people give them a lot of metal credit. But I do.
And Korn and System of a Down did that combo show last summer in LA, and Faith No More was supposed to be on it as well. I'm not sure they made it, and Helmet was on it as well. They're like, gotta have Helmet. So there you go. It was like and they had such a sound to them too. And this is the key thing that we touched on a couple weeks ago about the sound of things, but like the cat's making out with Chris.
Can't get my arm back, sir.
but Pantera is obviously like Vulgar Display of Power or any of those, or Master of Puppets, any of these things that had this very you knew exactly what that record and who that band was the second you heard them, which isn't the case anymore. A lot of these bands all sound the same production wise, and Helmet's one of those bands that had killer production because they had this just unique sound.
Yep.
I remember when I first heard them. I heard them, and then I saw them, and it was like, well, these guys don't have long hair. I remember that was the first thing I thought was like, I picture these guys with the hair, because it was back in the day. And and they didn't. It was like, oh, that's different. Cool.
Good one there, Darren. That's a great band, actually. I forgot about Helmet as far as being in that category. So good one. Yeah, I like that band a lot. I just saw them a couple years ago too. They're still rocking out. Cool. Have you seen them?
Have I seen them? I've seen them so many times. Yeah.
Like lately?
Oh no, I haven't. But I do talk to Paige every now and again. About beer. He's a big beer guy, so we talk about beer and music. Yeah. And I had him on my podcast a couple times. And
I heard the riff on Young Sheldon. I heard the riff on Young Sheldon the other day, and I was just like, "Holy shit! Yeah, there it is." So good. They'll be making some money off that
for sure. Yeah.
We'll keep going with Darren before he's got to jump here. Next, there, buddy.
For me.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy. Because we know we got to take it off.
I'll rip off a couple more. There's so much great metal in the United States. There's lots of great metal, obviously in England, but mainland Europe produced a lot of great metal. And a band out of Germany that didn't get a lot of love was a band called Creator, who are still doing it to this day. I mean, they were thrash metal fucking gods. The drumming was so good. The riffs were good. And Millie, the singer, the guy there on the left, his vocal styles were just like on point. This band was tight as fuck. So yeah, I fell in love with them. And when what was the record? It was Endless Pain came out in like '85, and then Pleasure to Kill. But they're still on tour right now. They're still doing it. They're still putting out music. They're still touring, and that music, as you get old, is really hard to play. Maybe Boneless can touch on this, but we're not getting any younger, and drumming is a really a physical thing to do. So the fact that guy can play drums at that high level, or bands like Cannibal Corpse, or bands like Obituary, or Entombed, or even Lamb of God. I know that drummer's a lot younger, but it's hard to do. And the fact that Creator are still out there putting out records and doing it to me, blows my mind. But they're underrated as far as the thrash metal scene.
Definitely.
You don't hear them. Everyone's like, oh yeah, Anthrax or Sacred Reich or whatever, but no one's really talking about Creator.
You can hear more about Testament, way more about Testament. Yeah, I got to listen to some Creator.
But they are playing a lot. They are in Europe. They were on a ton of stuff this summer in Europe, actually, when I was over there.
Creator?
I don't know if they draw, but they were on stuff. They did something with Volbeat, and they were doing a few other things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because there's so many metal festivals over there. You know that, Dan. Like, there's just so many metal festivals in Europe. It's great. It's just metal and metal and metal over there all the time. So they love their metal in Europe.
Yeah, that's good. Keep it alive, man.
You have to.
And Danko Jones.
As far as dedicated fan bases go, I think metal fans and ska fans are like on par. Like, they are die fucking hard. Ska guys and ska girls are like, oh yeah, let's go to the ska show and skank. And metalheads are like, I'm not gonna ever cut my hair ever. And like, well, you're 55. I don't care.
Represent.
Like I go to the Rainbow and I see these people and I'm like, wow, you are dead fucking cated. Holy fuck. Like, man, oh man.
Yeah.
So that's why these festivals and these bands continue to tour, because there's still a fan base out there that are really into it. Like,
yeah.
No matter what the genre of metal is, thrash, industrial, like all these bands we're talking about, riff metal, like whatever the case may be, metal fans are lifers for sure.
And Europe especially is very interesting about that, because so many, like, music in it with all of us in general is associated with a time, or it's associated with something in our lives, or it radiates with us in some capacity. But there was you think about what's happened in Europe over the last 100 years, and then when metal broke from early, Sabbath on through, and bands like Creator and all these other bands that kind of came out of there, so many people are still in that, like, Berlin Wall came down, or were in, the two sides of Germany, and so they got this kind of metal, or they got this kind of metal, and those bands come out now and they're still doing arenas, because that people go, that's the greatest time in their life, when they got their freedom, or when Germany, got to be huge, and these metal bands just fucking clean up over there, because people just associate such a time with it. It's unreal.
Yeah, you're right. They're absolutely right, especially in Germany. Like, being Germans, like, these bands are German centric. There's another band called Destruction that were from Germany that did really well. Not Possessed. Possessed were American. Actually, sidebar on the band Possessed, the guitar player was a guy by the name of Larry Lalonde, who left Possessed to join a band from San Francisco called Primus.
Right.
Yes.
Larry.
Little unknown fact about the guitar player Primus.
Probably a good
Didn't know
move. I would say that was probably a good move on his part. A couple more for you, Darren, before you got to get out of here, bud.
Yeah, I mentioned Sacred Reich. They're on my list. Just a great Phoenix thrash metal band. Look at those guys. Like,
yeah, totally.
And again, what stood out about that band when you listen to their records was the proficiency of each guy in the band. The drummer was just phenomenal. The guitar playing was next level. Songwriting was catchy. There was structure. It was recorded well. Really good hooks. Great artwork. Then you saw them play live, and they were like, your mouth was on the ground. Like, holy hell, these guys don't miss a beat, and they're just tight. And they did it drunk. Like, they were drinking all day, and they're drinking on stage, and you can tell that they've been drinking all day, but they just shred.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see a band that has all those elements, you become a fan. But I wish more people talked about Sacred Wreck.
Agreed.
They deserve it.
Let me just double check.
I know, Chris. I know we mentioned them before on a pod. Like, I know you know who they are.
I do totally. Yeah, Surf Nicaragua was a big CD or tape when I was younger.
Look at the shirts: Death, Corrosion, and Slayer.
Yeah,
I think a
What's
big
the
thing
other guy
about Mark
wearing? It looks like, I don't know, what is that one on the right?
Tom's Machine Shop and Welding.
Yeah, probably.
But the guys are like,
Which
guys,
is
we
pretty
gotta
metal.
we gotta wear a Slayer, Corrosion, and Death shirt because maybe they'll take us on tour with them. You know what I mean?
And the one guy's like, well, my dad owns this metal shop, so I got to promote his business.
Yeah. He paid for the van, guys. Come on.
We got free brake pads. We got to wear the shirt. Ask for Tom. You know?
That's funny.
Right? Tell him Sacred Right sent you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. And then I guess, Darren, you've got one of the things we want to do here is Overrated.
Well, I got a couple more, but they're Canadian. And if you don't mind, I want to just rattle them off.
Go for it.
Honorable Canadian mentions for metal. A lot of people don't think about Canada being a great nation of metal, but it is. I mean, there's Helix. You know, everyone knows, give me an R. Oh, like, come on. That song is quintessential fucking metal. I mean, come on. Then you have Anvil, who, you know, are doing it right now, out there playing shows, out there with the documentary. Songwriting wasn't up to maybe what their U.S. counterparts were doing, but the documentary shows that there was a lot of love from Metallica, from Anthrax, from Slayer, that they loved Anvil because they were good dudes and fun to tour with. But then you have a band called Annihilator that not many people know.
Mm-hmm. Alice in Hell, or Alice from Hell.
Alice in Hell. Aldo Nova are Canadian. I'm not sure.
Oh, Aldo Nova's awesome.
And then finally, from Montreal, more of like an industrial metal band called Voivod that I was really a big fan.
Voivod, yeah.
Newstead joined them again and kind of brought them up again. Mm-hmm. I think Annihilator and Anvil were both on A&M. Maybe. I think that's a pretty common thing. What do you think of this theory about an Anvil not making it? Because the singer and Mustaine had similar kind of quirks about them, and there was like you had to pick a Metallica or a Megadeth side back then, and if an Anvil were too much like Megadeth. So I'm curious what your take is on like the comparison of that, because he was kind of a funny dude, but you know, major player and awesome, but he was also kind of quirky and do
you remember Boneless and I we opened for them when they were doing some Ontario dates there, and this was right when they were getting their home video put out and everything. Sum 41 had their poster in the background, and the whole conversation that I was having with I get Lips, I don't know his actual name, but was the whole thing that they were concerned whether they were being made fun of or whether their other picture was in the background because they actually liked them. And he was genuinely concerned whether he was being made fun of or, you know, they genuinely liked. And because we were out on tour with Sum 41 or played shows with when before that, we came from the same area, and I'm like, you know what, man? I honestly don't know, but I know that they do really like metal. They genuinely like Maiden and stuff like that. So it was, you know, and then I'm thinking, oh, man, of course they do. They love you guys, man. You guys, who doesn't love Anvil, right? And he's, okay, cool, man, cool, right? You catch yourself, right? Like, but because they put on a great show for us, but the problem was that the biggest draw was on near the beginning, and all these little kids, all the new generation of metalers left because it was too late. It was one of those classic things where Anvil's on at like 1 a.m. or something like that. It's an all ages show. And the popular bands, we had a huge crowd. Like we had way. I don't know if there's anybody left for Anvil. It felt so bad for them. But that was when they were just starting to come back. But I did see I did get a vibe of that whole thing they've been through in just like an hour conversation over a few beer. And it's pretty wild.
Darren, we could go on for a long time about Canadian metal because the interesting part about it, there is a lot of those bands that like the Killer Dwarfs, them that kind of came through that scene, but there was only Q107, and before CanCon it was really weird. Like you just couldn't hear those bands. So unless someone handed you a tape or Columbia House sent you the record by accident, there wasn't like a chance to hear them. And the Power Hour on Much Music would play them occasionally, but they were up against Slayer, they're up against Poison. Like that's what the Power Hour did. It covered these whole things. So you never got that like, well, here's Anvil's new video, and you never had Terry David Mulligan going, "This is fucking great. It's new Anvil." It was like it just kind of went in there. And those Canadian bands really, I don't even know if there's a Canadian band that broke through at all. Killer Dwarfs are getting a little bit more respect now. Lee Aaron a little bit internationally, but Slick Ties, Harem Scarum a bit. I mean, Harem Scarum overseas, yes. Great.
Sacrifice. I was a big fan of Sacrifice when I was growing up. They were a Canadian
Sacrifice
metal
is
band.
actually really good. Like they just put out a record on the same label as we did, or as we are, and it sold right out. Like they still have like a solid set fan base. They're still out there killing it.
Nice.
So
Soldiers of Misfortune, I think, was the name of the album I had it there. Soldiers of Misfortune. Were they from Scarborough?
Yeah. Actually, there's a weird relation to Random Killing Sacrifice because Mark Watts, who played guitar in Random Killing, his brother is in Sacrifice. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I thought they were from Montreal, actually, but I guess I'm wrong.
You know what's an underrated band from Canada? Our guest from
Voivod is from Montreal, definitely.
Yeah, you know, it's an underrated band from Canada. Our guest from last week, Gary's band, The Leftovers.
Oh, The Leftovers, yeah.
It never broke through, but it was leading the charge, man, of some metal. So, anyways, yeah, Darren. I mean, there was tons of Canadian metal, but no one.
Is Coney Hatch considered metal?
No.
No, that's classic rock.
Classic rock. So they were a rock band, really. They weren't metal.
Because we had like so many bands trying, like Sven Gali and like fucking Harem Scarum, as you said, who got the closest internationally.
Well, I think Helix got pretty close as well. They got to go out and tour with Kiss, which is a pretty big deal. A sidebar about Helix is I worked at a car lot, and when they weren't working or they weren't touring, the guys would bring their cars in because they were best friends with the parts manager there, Jay Wetloff, who's passed away now. But they would come in, and he would phone me because there was no texting back then. Hey, Chris, come on down to the car dealership. It's like, dude, it's Saturday. Come on down. Okay. And I'd go down there with my metal vest on, all my pins. Yeah, it's the drummer Fritz. He's working on his car. That's awesome. So I'd go up there and I'd just watch him, just listen to him talk. I was just a little guy, man. It's really rad. So that's my sidebar.
Very cool.
Yeah, so Helix were a few times as well.
Helix were the opener. They opened for everything. So they kind of got there. But Darren, how you doing
before I jump up, I got to give one overrated band. I've never been a fan of this band, and I know a lot of people watching are going to be like, "Are you out of your mind?"
No, bring it on.
Megadeth,
right? I can see that.
Never really a fan. I don't know why. I mean, I suppose I liked Peace Cells and Wake Up Dead and all that, those first earlier songs. But as time went on, I was just like, something about Dave Mustaine turned me off. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was his attitude about Metallica, because
he complained a lot too, right?
Along the way where he was like, "Well, I got robbed and I got cheated and this and that, and I'm really bitter and I got resentments." It could have been that. It could have been. I don't know what it is, but I was always a Metallica guy. Megadeth's like, okay, it's listenable. It's not hurting my ears, but I never bought a Megadeth ticket. I've never put on a Megadeth song in my life. I don't know what it is.
When I check this out, just when I was younger, this is my favorite line from any song is from Sloan Song. It's not the band I hate, it's their fans. So growing up in a small town, I had the Metallica shirts from Killing 'Em All Up, and I used to get beat up for wearing those shirts and called a girl because of my hair. And then when we hit the end of high school, those guys that were beating me up were wearing Metallica shirts. So I was kind of like, oh, and then you look at the band going, dude, what happened? And of course, they don't have anything to do with it. So all the jocks used to beat me up. By the time we got to the Black Album, they loved it. They loved the Black Album. And it was kind of like, it was forcing me to listen to, which again, I was Metallica all the way when I was younger. That forced me to listen to the one Megadeth album with the noodling on, with Marty Friedman in there and everything. Holy Wars and all that's on there.
Hangar 18.
Hangar 18, that was, and that was the one Megadeth album that I remember listening to that, and then and thinking like, okay, wow, they really, I can grab onto this while the kids I hate are listening to Metallica. I'll just listen to this for a little while. So I did jump over there, and then I started teaching again, getting back to Metallica. But yeah, it was like wasn't the band I hate, it was the fans because they used to beat me up.
That's fair enough. And also, before I jump, guys, the new Metallica song "Lux Eterna" is so fucking good.
Oh,
It
cool.
just came out today. Yeah.
Listen to it. It is just fantastic. I mean, Lars is drumming away, and it's riffy, and it's just
People aren't
classic
really
Metallica.
paying attention to some of the stuff that they've been doing because some of the things that they did on the last two records are pretty. Like, there's a song on that last record that is one of the best arrangements they've ever made. Like, it's just fucking killer, and
Was
it's
it,
just like,
was it, Hardwired?
well, there's Hardwired. That's the record. But the song, and it's funny. I was just listening. Well, Moth into a Flame is a killer tune. Anyways, that was a cool tune. To kind of, for them to kind of do it. It had some great arrangements on it. But let me bring it up here in my slow internet.
Riff Masters, man.
But yeah, the new song's great, and I think they got 12 songs, and they actually put a record out within a couple of years, which is interesting.
Yeah, and they just released a bunch of tour dates all over the world.
Nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be something. And let me just bring this up here. But yeah, I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I know you got to go, buddy. But it's there's some great stuff in there. But thanks for bringing that up. There is new Metallica today for everybody to go listen to.
Really good,
So.
really, really, really good.
Thanks for the time, man. I appreciate you
buddy.
making
Always
it
good to
as
see you.
always.
Thanks, guys. Good to
thank
see you,
you.
Boneless. Good to see you, my friend. And let's do
You
it again,
too.
boys.
Yeah, we'll be back with our It Came From the Basement episode around December the 19th there, and so get some of your nostalgic cool shit out of your garage there, and we break it all out and show it.
Got it, for
yeah.
sure. All right,
Awesome,
boys.
buddy.
Later.
Appreciate
care,
the
buddy.
time, man. Take care. That's Darren Pfeiffer, our good friend that's been on. We've been doing overrated, underrated. Boneless. We did some overrated, underrated punk. We did some just bands of all time that we think were underrated. So a lot of these bands are crossing over here, which is great.
So I'm hearing.
A lot of them are crossing over. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Boneless. You got another band on your list. I'm gonna find this Metallica riff for a second.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to get into some Canadians. My first one, they're no longer a band anymore, but Rammer from Toronto, I think is probably the most underrated Canadian band, metal band of all time. They were absolutely vicious. They were incredible live. Both guitarists were just incredible. And even better, they're some of the guys are from our hometown, like Al Biddle and Phil Zeller were members of that, and they were just absolutely incredible. They only put out a few records. Most notable would be Incinerator, Cancer. I think those two really hit home for me. But they're if they're not on your radar, I suggest that you download some fucking Rammer because they take serious.
Phil Zellers.
I haven't seen Phil in a while. I've seen that guy
at
with
their last show ever. Actually, we put on their last show ever at this little tiny place called Siesta Nouveau in Toronto. It was kind of like sort of like a rooming house, like a few floors with a whole bunch of different rooms in it. And Matt, the singer of my old band and program, was living there and putting on shows in his bedroom. It was called the Hired for the Lowdown Clubhouse, and Rammer played their last show in there, and there had to have been probably about 450 people rammed into a place that couldn't fit more than probably 50.
no pun intended. No pun intended.
Yeah, there's some footage online. You can kind of look it up on YouTube, but it was a very, very memorable moment, and that'll always stick with me. But Rammer is one of those bands where not a lot of people heard about them, but the people that did really, really loved them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Phil Zellers
Chris,
is quite the icon too.
Oh, I know, and it's funny because it almost hit with Scratching Post, and then kind of went the other way, and then he did some other metal. So I haven't seen Phil around very much.
Phil and Al, after Rammer quit playing, they moved on to Toxic Holocaust, and did a couple records with Joel from Toxic Holocaust afterwards, which was another fabulous band too.
Yeah,
incredibly underrated.
Definitely.
What do you got, Chris?
Okay. So if you want to get some hair metal going,
Oh,
and this is the only album I can
wondering when
recommend
that
to be you haven't heard is the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. There it is. Spin that album, man. Holy crap! You want some hair metal? It's got the voice, it's got the drums, the chants, the guitars, it's got the makeup, it's got the hair. Holy crap!
Half a Slaughter in there too. You got Dana Strum and
Definitely.
Mark Slaughter.
Yeah, because they got sick of Vinny and they took off and did their own thing, right?
That
Which
hair is
sold
unreal.
millions of
Isn't
records.
that wild?
Now Dana Strum plays bass with Vince Neil, ironically.
Oh, okay, I can see that.
You know, in there, but I don't know who's the other guy on the other side.
Oh, I can't remember, dude. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't.
There was always the
remember.
ones that had the good hair, and then there was like that guy on the far left has got the firehouse hair.
He does, doesn't he? He does. He's got the full teased afro going on.
Right? It's like, just get it up, guys. Just get it up.
Which was
Ease it
considered
up.
the good hair, though? Was it the Kiddo style fucking wig hair, or was it the guys that were like mad eased out? Like, which was the best?
No, I think it depends on your era, but I think this was definitely what 83 here, 84, Chris.
Maybe not a little later.
A little later. So I think it got a little flatter the more you got into like Sebastian Bach's kind of like normal hair.
I always liked Nikki Sixx's hair when I was a
Yeah.
kid. It was just
Yeah.
because it was just like spitting toothpaste in there, right? Like it was.
But look at
back in the
Helix's-
day, he just got up and was like, "Yeah."
Look at Helix's hair, and this is funny because we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but like how Tesla were just too ugly to make it,
Right.
but they're like the best band from that time. They just
Yeah.
weren't that good looking guys. You look at Helix, and Brian Vollmer is still considered the ugliest man in rock and roll.
Oh no, is he
Uh,
really?
And he's doing his
no.
best here. He's doing his best, and all the guys
Yeah.
are doing their best.
They are.
And you got the guy on the very end and the guy beside Brian. The one guy is dead now there, Paul. But the
Yeah.
other one
There's
is
Fitz on the very end, or Fritz, the drummer on
yeah.
the far right, and
Yeah,
the guitar player on the far left. I forget his name.
I mean, that's some big songs, man. Those
Yeah,
guys
they
had some big songs, but that just the
did.
Canadian thing. People just never took Canadian stuff seriously unless it hit in the States, and then they hated it for hitting in the States.
Well, and then another funny thing too. So Brian's tried to keep going in the past like decade and all, but he's so and he was going to do this like a show on himself behind the scenes, old rock star guy, but he starts talking politics constantly, right wing politics, like he's very right wing. And I don't care what your business is at home talking politics, but man, when you're a guy who's playing music and you start just saying, this guy sucks, the only thing good is the PCs, PPC are even better, then you're going like, oh, buddy, wait, so you don't like black people? Or like because the PPC is pretty right wing, right? Not just a whole political debate, but if somebody I'm listening to music-wise is pro that kind of angle and feels that I have to know about it, I'm not going to listen to them music-wise. Are you boneless? Like,
Nope, I'm out.
yeah, like it's one thing to be political and kind of, but when he's online, everything he's talking about is, screw this guy, this is the way to be. People should act like this. People should be like
But
this.
that-
Oh, and by the way, listen to buy my new album.
This is what's happening now, though, Chris. The thing is that the bands are now going. It's so weird because if you think about what do they say? All the best music is made when there's a Republican president, right? Because then people would get angry and blah blah blah. But now it's really, without getting too political, but it is such a divide that people didn't really care about your politics in the 80s, in the 90s, listening to these bands. Like Slayer could, Kerry King could go up there and be like, like a full-on George Bush supporter, like George Bush or Reagan guy, and people would be like, yeah, whatever, man, like whatever. And now it's like your bands have to pick sides, and that's what's happening. These bands are like, going, no, we're here. Like Kid Rock is clearly picked a side. Yeah. Monster Truck, they kind of picked a side. Like I'm just saying, so band they're kind of going, well, there's.
Are you seeing that, boneless, in the punk rock world today? Like when you're out on tour, are there a lot of bands that are very right wing and very left, and they just don't mesh together because they're singing about it?
Not so much. It's kind of weird. Like, the punk rock scene's kind of done a U-turn in some ways. Like with this whole like COVID thing and everything, it used to be always like fuck authority and all this fucking shit and like fuck the government and all this. And then when it came to masking and stuff, like it seems like the punk rock community really embraced it and was like, everybody needs to mask, everybody needs to follow the rules, and it's like, it's a completely different universe out there right now from what it used to be. Like, yeah, that's my.
There's a very many.
Anyway.
Yeah, is there any political bands left?
Oh yeah, there's lots of political bands that are out there. Maybe even more so now, just because the world's so fucked up. You know, like.
Did you see
is
what
there any
Dropkick-
right-wing punk bands? Because
right.
punk's generally against the right.
Yeah,
generally. Have you come across any punk bands that are like, pro Trump and pro this and pro that?
There's a few out there. I know the one guy that what's his fucking name? He's but he does a solo thing now. Apparently, he's like a Trump supporter. Like,
well, there's the Stain, the guy from Stain. That's not punk rock, that's metal. That's like a if you call it metal, whatever the fuck they're called, Stain. But that guy's pretty. But they they just pick a side because they know they can go up and do $20 a fucking ticket, and guys are gonna fly their flags, and there's enough.
Also, I was wondering, like on the punk rock circuit, where you're not just bumping into the people you're playing with, you're hanging out with them generally. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I love about the punk rock shows is when you show up, you're not segregated from all the bands. You're outside smoking with them. You're at the bar drinking with them. So that's why I was wondering if oh fuck, this band's playing tonight, man.
Isn't this a perfect time to start one of those bands, though, Chris? Someone could start a punk band right now called "Fuck Trudeau," and people are like, "Yeah, man, we're fucking going to that, right." And we're gonna go, we're gonna play in this, and we're gonna do that, and fucking all the songs are, but it's just funny. We could,
it's
Weird Al.
It's weird how kind of now, like, we caught a lot of heat because when we toured with the Big Abortions in April earlier this year, we had a poster that had Trudeau basically wiping his eye, crying, with us and Dave Logan on tour, and everybody fucking lost their minds because of that whole freedom protest with the trucks and everything. It was right after that, and they thought that we were giving like a big statement about we're like pro freedom convoy and like all this fucking shit, and we're like, no, Trudeau's just actually sad because we're coming to town. Like, that's how I took it.
Right, yeah, the government is not happy.
Else, and like, yeah, like it got to the core and stopped using the poster because we were just hearing way too much about it. It's like, fuck you guys.
See, and that's funny too, because everybody's mind goes to a different thing. To me, my mind goes to all the Native children that we lost and were covered up. When I think of hatred towards the government right now, you know what I mean? Everybody has different angles, which is funny. I don't really, if I see political posts, I really try and skip them. I'm not privy to that. So all I know is that my point is just, it's different how when you put a political thing, you don't have to say anything, but everybody's going to get a different perception from it, right? Where I saw, Every Child Matters and how they were mad at the government and him that way for, covering it up and whatnot. And, other people are thinking the masks and the truckers, and some people might just be thinking authority. So many different ways you can take. But it's again a little different in the States too, I would imagine, right? Like, the right and the left are just so, there's that line and that's it. We at least have the NDP party and the Green Party to kind of throw in the mix there a bit,
right? What do you got next there, Bonus?
Okay. What do we got here? Another underrated Canadian band that I think everybody needs to hear. They're not everybody's taste because of the subject content. They're just kind of like one of those bands that they sing about grotesque and fucking weird shit and all that. The Goalers from Vancouver are completely underrated. They've toured all over the fucking place. You've probably seen them at some point if you've ever been at a decent metal show. They put out countless amazing records. They have a new one coming on the way. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to see them, see the fucking Goalers. They're absolutely fantastic band. They're one of those bands that just absolutely shreds on guitar. Like, the guy's hands literally doing one of these. Like, you can't. It's just a fucking blur the whole fucking time. Like, both of them just fucking kill it. Drummer's fantastic. Like I said, the lyric content, not for everybody. They got their name from like an incestual clan in like somewhere on the East Coast that lived on like a place called South Mountain. did a whole bunch of inbreeding and stuff. But that's how they got their name, which is like.
But
I don't know.
that's what we want to hear. I don't want you got somebody going on like, how did you come up with your name of your band? It's like, well, we read this story about this old man that used to eat trees and then kill wolves, and we decided to call it the Wolf Eater. And whatever. People are like, that's a fucking great story, whatever. But you don't get those anymore. It's like, how'd you come up with your name?
Right.
How'd you come up with your name? Oh, my dad was swearing in the garage once. Yeah.
No, they're definitely worth seeing. Like the first time I saw them, we were on tour out in Vancouver, and we were playing the Cobalt, and we had a day off before our show, and people we were staying with, they were like, "Well, there's this band called the Goalers. They're playing at Cobalt tonight. You guys want to go check out the venue and like see a show? We can all get in, kind of thing." I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. Let's go." So we all went down and fucking. A few played. The openers were pretty decent, just kind of generic metal bands. But the Goalers got on stage, and every single one of them was in a wife beat that was like stained with like all sorts of fucking dirt and fucking grime and shit. And they just got up, and it was just so punishingly heavy and fucking tight that like it was mind blowing. I fell in love like instantly.
Nice.
Check it out, especially if they're out here. I'll have to check it out. We're getting down there on time a little bit. Bonus. What else you got on your list there, buddy?
Oh, what else I got on here?
You can tell us what you're doing. What do you got going on? Who do you got last?
I'm just gonna make a mention of two other bands, both Canadian. Baptists are from Vancouver. Anybody that's a drummer out there, you need to see these guys play. Nick Yakishin is the drummer of this band. Dave Grohl has basically quoted that this guy is the next generation of fantastic drummers.
Really?
They're kind of in between hardcore and metal, necessarily so much on the metal side, but just because of the drumming, check out Baptists. And I'm gonna have to mention my buddies, the Big Low Abortions.
Yeah.
They put out two records, Two Dogs Fucking and Here Today, Gone Tomorrow, that are both absolute fucking front to back, perfect fucking thrash metal records. Very influential at the time, and obviously beloved by everybody in Canada. But abroad, I'm not sure that they got quite the notice that they do here. But I had to mention them just because I've loved them forever, and they're a big part of who I am. So I wanted to mention them. And the other one was DRI. I know you guys talked about DRI last week. Kind of on the punk side of things because obviously they were that crossover. They had a little bit of hardcore, a little bit of punk on their earlier records, but their later records like Thrash Zone, what else? The Definition record.
Crossover was a good one, man.
Yeah, Crossover, and even Full Speed Ahead. Like they're all just fantastic records. So I wanted to mention them because. Again, friends of mine, I love those guys to death. Had the opportunity of touring with them, and I've loved them for as long as I can remember. So, just wanted to mention them.
Give me a little bit more notice on the love part. I would have queued up some little hearts and a few little things here for you. We could have sent it to them. That would have been a whole thing. I'll do it in post. Okay, and most overrated band? What do you think? Most overrated metal band?
In metal?
Do you have one?
I'm gonna plead the fifth on this one because I'm gonna say something that's gonna piss a whole bunch of people off. So
that's why we're here.
This is why we've got the good content here.
Yeah, I'm gonna plead the fifth.
Buddy.
I love everybody.
This has got to be the most underrated metal band right here.
Prong.
Absolutely. I love this band. Chris introduced me to them on that record. And everything I've gotten everything by them, and then their new stuff is killer. I remember being out with Korn and talking to Ray, the drummer, and he's like, "We're gonna go out in the summer and we're gonna do this." And they were joking about all the bands, and I yelled out from my office, "You need to take Prong!" And Ray just yells down, "Monkey, get on the fucking phone and get Prong on this tour." It was just this funny, Prong. Everyone's like, "Fucking Prong, why not Prong?" Yeah. But they never got out there. But yeah, that's band. I love that band.
Good band.
Hey, bonus, before we let you go, what do you think of this Pantera thing?
What? I don't even know. What are you talking about?
Oh,
Ooh.
go ahead, tell him.
I'm out of touch. Are they coming back?
Phil Anselmo and Rex Brown are taking Zach Wilde and Charlie Benante on tour and calling it Pantera. Go ahead, bonus. Go ahead, caller.
Oh boy, yeah, that's a lot to digest right now.
Now you just got an overrated band right there.
My first immediate reaction is really Zach Wilde's doing somebody else again.
Yeah.
Well, for the record, when they
I really hope
before this went down, and years ago when the brothers were still alive, there was a whole thing where Dime had said, if I die, I want Zach to be my guy, or something like that. So they did that kind of. They did this kind of thing, and he's probably wasted and joking, but he kind of did this thing. And Charlie, of course, is like family. So you kind of have like family. But should it be called Pantera?
I don't know.
No, I don't think.
The whole thing is, for the fans' sake, I hope it's worthwhile, and I hope they do an excellent job of those songs. I mean, those are some huge shoes to fill on both instruments. And
let me ask you this then: if only one of the brothers had passed, could they call it Pantera?
Yeah, for sure, because it's 3 out of 4 members.
Right. So
plus, it's one of the brothers that are survived, right? Like,
yeah, it's very interesting because it's going, it's splitting the atom. And then I think Corey from Slipknot said it best. Said you'll all complain about it, and then you're all going to go see it.
Yep.
But didn't they hate each other too?
Very
Like,
true.
didn't Phil and Rex dislike the brothers? Like, didn't they hate each other at the end there? Or no?
I mean, that's a whole other
know.
podcast. But yes, there was a bit of a thing there.
Yeah, I thought.
And then the deep roots of that, unfortunately, are when the brothers went out and did Damage Plan, and Phil was out with Superjoint Ritual, which is another underrated band, by the way. But when Superjoint, we're in, it was either Superjoint or Down. I think it was Superjoint. Were in that club in Columbus 2 weeks prior to the Dimebag thing, and somebody yelled out, "Why is Pantera not together?" And Phil yelled out, "Go ask the fucking brothers."
Right.
And basically blamed them, and the guy who killed Dime was in the crowd.
Oh boy.
So there's this association of like that guy took that info and then basically blamed the brothers for the demise of Pantera, and that's the whole thing. So there was a lot of that. There's a lot of mess there, unfortunately. So now you've got Zach and Charlie going out, and they're gonna try. Like, I don't know if it should have been called Pantera, but I guess that's the difference between 50 grand and $1 million, right? So.
So what do you have coming up now, Boneless, with your band there? What's going on? What's Random Killing doing?
Random Killing currently has a pre-sale going on right now for a new record. There's 3 bundles that you can buy, or just the single record. You can buy a bundle with a T-shirt and a bunch of stuff, a sweater and a bunch of stuff, or a skateboard deck that I believe we're going to sign. So yeah, we have that going on. It's supposed to be coming in January or February, so it'll be shipped out by Kurt's Blessings then. We got a lot of tour plans for next year. Can't really announce just yet because the band that we're touring with has some obligations, but we're going right across Canada, and yeah, it's going to be a fun year next year. Also doing some stuff with Filthy Kitty. We're going to be working on some tracks over the winter here, and talking about maybe doing a live band for him, and that I might be a part of or something. So got that going on. Other than that, just recording and playing and keeping it on. And,
Nice.
Yeah, never seems to end.
The hardest working man in independent music, right there, my friends.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah, you're my favorite musician.
Oh, thank you very much. It means a lot. I love you guys, and thank you very much for fucking having me out here. It's always a great time. I know I'm not always the most talkative person, but it's great to talk to both of you. I miss you both, and hopefully I get to see you in person sometime soon.
See you in Vancouver, brother.
Buddy.
Let's see. Let me know when you get out here, man.
Yeah,
fucking right. I will for sure.
Awesome. All right, Bones.
Thanks,
Take
Bone.
care, buddy.
All right,
Thanks,
have a
man.
great night.
Say hi to the
Guys,
family
I
for me.
love
Love you, buddy. Take care.
Cheers, guys.
The Bone.
The bone.
Look at that.
The bone of the bean.
Look at the beans.
bean.
Look at the beans holding on
I'm
to
hanging
being
on,
alive.
man.
Yeah. All right. Before we go, we got to talk about some things. Some exciting news about 2023.
Right.
So we have roughly got, just for everyone listening at home, we're not going to get too far into. There's a switch coming. There's a switch coming. Our friends at Dean Blundell have been amazing hosting us, but there's more exciting news coming for that network, and so in turn we decided we might as well get some exciting news of ourselves. So we've got roughly about 3 weeks left of the Kids on the Escalator podcast, culminating with the end
Yes.
of our yearly It Came From the Basement segment, where we're going to get a whole bunch of people on doing the thing, showing some cool stuff that they've collected over the years, and it's always a very popular episode, and it's a blast, and everyone has a good time, and Beans will be there, and I'll bring Charlie along, and it'll be great. But we do have a change coming. The show will be changing names, and the show will be a little bit more streamlined. So what do you got?
More of a variety show.
More of a variety show. Chris, what do you got, buddy? What do you think? What are we going to name
so
this show?
we're switching to, I guess it's going to be live from Machete Studios.
Yeah, we're going to call the new show Live from Machete Comics.
Right, live from Machete Comics. That's what it's called. There we go.
Live from Machete.
On.
Live from Machete Comics. Thanking everybody that's joined us on this journey for the Kids on the Escalator podcast. But as the empire of Machete expands and he starts taking over the world, it's just time to really hunker down and focus on all the things that are coming out of the Machete lab there of rad things.
I'm stoked. There's a revamp coming to the whole network and everything, so we are evolving with the network, right?
Yes, we're evolving.
You've got another show coming up as well. Like we're going to be. What I'm doing here is I'm doing like a variety show. I'm going to be doing some funny stuff. I got some characters. Brent, you saw the one character. He made an appearance earlier.
Yep.
That was Greg Beginigan. Greg Beginigan will be making appearances on here. Yeah, and I have a wrestler called The Knife. The Knife will be making an appearance. The Knife has made a vague appearance there earlier on in an independent podcast I did.
I think I saw that.
Way back in the day. So we've got The Knife. The wrestler will be on. We've got Greg Beginigan. Greg Beginigan is a real cool dude, but he's just such a nerd, man. I'm going to try and help him out a bit. And we'll have a segment that I'm going to do where I'm going to invite somebody in the house, and we're going to sit in front of a fireplace, and I'm going to do an interview with them. We're going to color, we're going to play video games, or we're going to drink booze, or we're going to smoke weed, or we're going to order some really good food. It's going to be up to the guest. And I'm going to sit with them, and I'm going to chat with them. If they want to draw, we'll draw. It's whatever they want to do. So I have a couple cool guests lined up. You know, we always have some musicians on here, so there's always that option. The film festival's kicking off when we're doing this as well, so I'm hoping I can maybe get I'd love to get one of the Kids in the Hall members in here. I don't know if that's possible. It was at one point, but then COVID hit. I was all set to have Kevin McDonald on the show with us. I was us, right? On Kids on the Escalator. We were all set to have him on, and then COVID hits. Hopefully I can kick off the show with something like that. But so I'm going to have convos, live convo around the fireplace.
We're also going to dive into the works of Chris and some of the things that he's got going on, because he's got some great commissions happening and all the things. He's also, obviously has the comic book and a few things coming out that have already been out. But it's just important as we progress ahead. It's just more of a all-encompassing show, more streamlined into the House of Machete, but also Machete Comics in general. And I think it's just a natural move, and this has been great. We've had we're approaching 100 episodes on this, but it's time to change things up. So
nice. And what are you doing? What do you got going on?
So I am changing formats to a brand new show that I'm gonna have called Do Did Will, the story of people podcast. It's people who do, people who did, and people who will. And they're either going to fit into all three categories or one or the other. And we're going to have talks, because as I travel and I meet people, I'm like, God, I'd love to speak to that person, but it doesn't really fit my Brenton on tour, thing. And I'm like, I just, I don't want a news show. I'm not a political person, but there are conversations to be had with people from all walks of life that I think could be, inspiring, but also interesting to people. And so I'm going to change that up myself as well, launching in January with a bunch of kind of cool guests on the way as well. So 2 big changes coming. My show, this show.
Is Kanye West going to be a guest on your show?
You know what? I would kill to have Kanye West.
I
on
know
the
you
show
would.
because I think it would be a great interview. Because I just say, what do you think about this? And then he'll go for 20 minutes, and then I'll go, what do you think about this? And then he'll go for another 20 minutes, and the show's done.
You'd end up getting in a physical fight with him at the end of it because he'd attack you over something, and then that'd be the best part of the film there.
He just wants to be heard, man. He just wants to be heard.
I know.
But
Okay, so
yeah,
how's Alex's totally talking about hockey earlier? Let's end with hockey. How is Alex's hockey card collection doing?
Yeah, he's doing good. He's been he's on a real Elias Pettersson kick with the Vancouver Canucks because the Elias rookie out here is doing really well. But he also he's trying to complete a set. He's got a bunch of different things, and he's got some jersey cards that he's gotten, and he's really into it. And ironically, my daughter has been like really doubling down on the hockey, and I'm thinking it's just because of
on the cards or actually playing.
No, she like interested in watching it, but she got some cards as well, and she was like this player and that player. So it's very interesting to kind of watch their progression through the whole thing.
All right. Well, if you want to help out, send your hockey cards in for the younglings so they can get their collection going in the right direction.
That's right. I've got a pile of them.
Is it Peterson or Pedersen?
Patterson, yeah.
Okay, we're looking at you, buddy. We need some of your cards, man, for
That's
Alex.
right.
He's a huge fan from Vancouver.
That's right.
Help the
We
kid
need
out.
cards. So next week, I think it's just going to be you because I'm away. I think it's going to be just you, and I think we'll give a preview of the live from.
You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna introduce my guests and stuff. All right, I'll put something together. It's gonna be fun.
And then after that, we're going to probably finish up underrated, overrated, and then get into our It Came from the Basement and wrap up the Kids on the Escalator podcast on the Dean Blundell Network. So, but for your listeners, you won't have to change feeds. The RSS feed for this will stay the same. We're just going to change the name of the show, so it'll still live on Spotify and all the places that you've gotten this from in the past. We're just going to new artwork, new everything, new name of the show, but new kind of things. So, coming soon in 2023.
Yes, evolving with the times because you got it.
Thanks, everybody. That is the Kids on the Escalator podcast for another week. Dangerous Dorothy and Gracious Gary from, I know you guys love this heavy metal chat this week. So kudos. I know you heard a lot of it in Chris's room back in the day.
Yep.
Go Leafs, go Canucks. And that, my friends, is another episode for the week. And you'll see him next week. You'll see him next week. That is the Kids on the Escalator podcast for another week. Thanks for friends at DeanBlundell.com. Good times.
Rad dudes. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Party on, be good to each other.